Hey, race fans, welcome into another episode of Backseat Drivers. I'm Alex Weaver, joined now by Jonathan Merriman and Chase Wilhelm. Guys, we know that Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin are the two to beat right now. They are in a class all their own, and we're used to seeing big threes. So who's the third? If those are the two, who's the last one that you guys have in?
I don't know if there is one right now. Clearly, those two guys are the class of the field. You could certainly make some arguments on down the list, but I think for me, I'm going to have to default to the point standings. And currently behind Kevin Harvick in second place, when you take, the spots guaranteed in the playoffs for wins, is Chase Elliott's there with one win this year. So he just hasn't been able to close races out. That's the issue. That's the disconnect. But I don't know. I don't think you can put, him – I don't think you put anybody in a big three category. Nobody is at the level that the 11 is, and nobody is at the level that the 4 is. This is a two-horse race right now. But there is time. We have a lot of time left before we get to the playoffs, so that will change. But right now, there's nobody that can touch these two.
I'm gonna have to agree with you there, Merriman. These two drivers are the class of the field. I mean, they can't not win. I mean, they just don't know how to right now. And both teams are firing all cylinders. And Ronnie Childers and Chris Gabehart, they are just like the two smartest crew chiefs in the garage right now. And I mean, yeah, I guess you'd go with the Chase Elliott if you had to pick a big three. But like you said, there is no big three. There's a big two right now, and that's all we got. So I guess maybe if Chase Elliott can close out some more races, maybe get another win or two, I'd be more willing to put him up there into the big three. But right now, I mean, him and Alex Bowman, they were both doing really well as the season got going and restarted. And now they've kind of fallen off just a little bit. And maybe you could even put a Ryan Blaney in there, but he's had a couple bad races between Pocono and Indy as well. So I think it's just those two drivers at the top right now.
So let's go ahead and look at what the 16 playoff picture looks like right now, because Merriman, you've said it several times that Kentucky is the time that you can kind of start to feel out your season, see what you got, see what you need to bring to get to the playoffs and make that summer shoot to get you in that top 16 drivers. So as it stands right now, any drivers that we're surprised about, any that we can definitely see making it in and out of the 16? What do you guys got?
So I think the question mark and something that's on everybody's mind right now, obviously, is Jimmie Johnson. We want him to be healthy, and we want him to return after self-reporting a positive COVID-19 case. But he's still hanging on inside the top 16. So, I think everybody knee-jerk reaction was like, oh, no, this is going to be catastrophic for Jimmie and catastrophic for his season. In theory, if he can get back after maybe just missing another race or maybe missing 2 more races, I think it's still manageable considering, some of these guys are having a little bit of trouble. But, I mean, that's not like a broken record because, some of these guys like Eric Jones, he's really, really good when it heats up in the summertime. Bad luck in Indianapolis. He's had a lot of bad luck as of late, but has been running really well. It only takes, one of those guys like that to get a win. Tyler Reddick, all it takes for him is to get a win. We know he's really good behind the wheel. And a couple of the guys maybe a couple spots ahead of that cutoff line, like a Boyer or Dibenedetto or an Austin Dillon to get a win to really make it super interesting as we come down to the cut line. But right now, I think if anybody's going to race their way into this thing, it's either going to be the 20 or the 8 car. Those two guys and nobody else.
No, I have to agree with you there. Like you said about Jimmie, I mean, it's good that he. I mean, I guess you have Kentucky, which we don't know if he's going to miss that or not. But then also after that is the All-Star race. So if he would need more time, we have a non-points race as well. So that also won't hurt him as much. And that 48 car has had speed. I mean, he could get it done. It's just there's been little things that just the whole package needs to come together for him, but he's still sitting pretty nicely, even though he missed Indy. And then Austin Dillon, he also ran really strong at Indy, and he's sitting there right on the cut line. So I could maybe see some good things from him, propel himself more into the top 16 as well. Matt Dibenedetto, he really sticks out to me as someone who can win a race, and you won't have to worry about points when it comes down to it. That he was really strong at Indy. He's shown a lot of speed all year long, and he could definitely click off a win. But as far as people outside the top 16, I'm looking at Tyler Reddick right now because that guy could really get a race win.
And look, let's not forget about Matt Kenseth either. Right now, he's sitting in 28th place in the points, and I mean, he was one spot away from taking a playoff spot away from someone who started all the races this year. So that's another guy that's down the list that can quite possibly climb his way, back up and into contention. It's going to take a lot. It's going to be a lot of work for him to do that. But, Kevin Harvick spins the tires yesterday at Indianapolis, and that 42 car gets out front. We're talking a different story today. But yeah, the break and the shutdown and having a pause and then coming back and having so many races packed into the schedule, it's crazy to look at this now and see that there's a lot of unknown around that cutoff line.
Is there one that surprises you guys on the flip side of things that you're a little worried about?
I don't know. I mean,
there's one.
There is one, but I mean, we pile on this guy every week, so I'm not going to do that. I'll give you one positive first. Aric Almirola and the streak that he is on. That's a guy that maybe in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, he can make the playoffs, but he's going to be somewhere in the 12th to 16th place range, even though last year he was way on up there, and the year before that he was on in there. They're running really, really well right now. I don't know. I mean, Dillon's in, but can Dillon maintain that with Jones and Reddick being so fast, and if they can finish it out? That's one. And then I don't know. Kyle, this is your weekend.
There it is.
You got to come through in Kentucky. If not, it's just I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it for the life of me. Cannot wrap my head around it. NBC was talking on the broadcast this weekend that because there is no practice or anything like that, there's less of a chance for these guys to look at each other's notebooks. And, it's almost like, it's not exactly like the Water Boy, but it's kind of like the Water Boy where Gabe Hart's got that magical green notebook right now and nobody else is getting to look inside of it as much. So it's interesting. But there's time, not panicking.
For me, yeah, I mean, you can go with Kyle Busch, obviously, because he hasn't gone to victory lane yet. We're approaching our panic button time, which is this weekend at Kentucky. But another guy, I guess if we're not going to go with Kyle, if we had to pick somebody else, Clint Bowyer kind of sticks out to me a little bit, just because he hasn't really shown as much speed as the other, especially Kevin Harvick, but also Aric Almirola, and even Cole Custer was running really strong at Indy as well. So maybe that's a guy who might stick out a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to go with Kyle too, Kyle Busch. We're still concerned a little bit for him.
Well, we are headed to Kentucky. We saw an incredible finish there in 2019 between the two Busch brothers with Kurt and Kyle going at it. Kurt gets the win. But Merriman, we talked about it on the preview show earlier that it's a completely different time than what we're used to racing at Kentucky. It's a 2:30 green flag. So what can we expect up there in Sparta?
We know the 4 and the 11 are going to be fast, but outside of those guys, some names that you might want to check off on your fantasy roster. Aric Almirola, we know he's got the top 5 streak going. He should be pretty good. He's riding that momentum. But further down the list, Tyler Reddick is going to be, number 1 on that list, and number 2 on that list is going to be Erik Jones. Look for those two guys to be a pretty good value on fantasy and might have top 5, top 10 days.
For me, outside of the regulars that we've seen are strong every single weekend, I'm going to go with who we talked about early in the show, and that's Matt Kenseth. Matt Kenseth, he was strong at Indy. We saw that. And also, he's won a race on a hot Sunday afternoon at Kentucky in 2013. So he knows how to get to victory lane when the track's really, really slick and it's really, really hot out. So that really sticks out to me as a driver that would be a good value in fantasy. Probably don't have a lot of uses with him over the past few weeks since he's been back in a race car. So that'd be a good pick for me.
All right. Well, I'm going to say 2 of my hot takes that I've said one on the preview show, but I like Aric Almirola in Kentucky. I think the 10, him and Bug have just rattled off some finishes that they weren't necessarily getting in 2019. I think he looks completely different than what he did last season. And then I think Tyler Reddick points his way into the playoffs. Those are my 2 hot takes that y'all aren't allowed to argue with.
I don't see anything stopping Reddick from getting in, that's for sure. So
Okay, great. Thought that was going to be more of a fight. All right. Well, thank you both for joining me. We're racing up in Kentucky this weekend in the NASCAR Cup Series. Make sure you tune into that at 2:30 on Sunday. It'll be on FS1 this week. Guys, we'll see you right back here next week.